So number three on the list, and I feel like this is the meat and potatoes of saving money, right? You mentioned it earlier, is the integration piece, right? Like what can you do to integrate other applications to save money, or even just to maximize? Like you mentioned earlier, a lot of people are on these enterprise SKUs, right? Let's use E3 or E5 as an example. It's like down to the user level, you have the ability to automate, to make things more efficient, right? To those routine tasks that you're doing every day, that can save you money because you're spending 2 hours a day, 10 hours a week on it. So let's get into the integration side of the house because that's your bread and butter, Chris.
Yeah.
How does integration help save customers money, especially with these rising prices?
Yeah. So, the thing I think that's most critical in this situation, if you're a person who's in a situation where you're trying to consolidate, be more efficient with your spend, I look at these things from the user perspective. I think oftentimes IT can lose that dimension of these of systems, right? So as a user, ask yourself, as a user, how am I working day to day? Talk to your SMEs. How are you doing X and Y throughout the day? Because then what you'll understand is how are they being inefficient? I have a swivel screen integration, right? I've got system A and system B, and I copy and paste, or I look here, look it up, and then I look up here and look it up. And it takes me 3 minutes to do that one task, and I do that task 100 times a day, right? So the first thing for that is look at it from the user perspective. Understand how they're actually executing these tasks, and then sit back and say, okay, how can we reduce systems? How can we eliminate steps in that process? Oftentimes it's with automation, which we'll talk about last, but oftentimes it's integration. Using Teams as an example. Teams has the ability to be the hub, not only I'll say of communication and collaboration, not just of real-time chat, which I think a lot of people use it for, but also to bring in these other systems, right? If you're natively in the Microsoft ecosystem and you're heavy in Azure, you're heavy in Office 365, you have the opportunity to bring in data, reporting, chatbots, all this information from other systems into a single pane of glass view. So again, looking at from the user perspective, how can I make their job easier? When I look at integrations, that's always the perspective that I have. How is this integration going to save our users time, energy, or effort, or reduce their error? If I'm copying and pasting, if I'm looking at screen A and screen B, I might fat finger something. I might not be able to copy and paste that. I might leave a trailing blank on it, which, as a developer could be, a death knell if it's not done correctly, right? So those are the kind of things that we can eliminate. And so I think when you start thinking of the integration as a way to save money, look at it as a way to save time. And the way that
Time
you
is
do
money,
that,
right?
yeah, of course, it always is connected. It always is connected. But you do it from the user's perspective. I think that is the key.
Yeah, and I think that's when you talk about integration and automation, right? That's what your practice does. The integration side, I feel, is a majority beneficial to the user, right? I mean, you mentioned Teams. That's going to be the main integration hub, right? I mean, Microsoft is pushing that to be the single pane of glass view for all things in Office 365, but not just in Office 365 anymore.
Right.
Now in other applications. So, hey, let's say you're a working finance department and you're a heavy user of Tableau, right? Because that's your reporting tool. You can put a tab of your Tableau reports inside of your Teams window, right? So you're no longer collaborating with Teams and chatting with your colleague and then going and open up Tableau and refreshing that report and then copy and pasting from there to here. That kind of thing that might seem trivial, right? It only takes you an extra 30 seconds. But if you're doing that all day, 40 hours a week, right? Like really how much time are you wasting not having those integration points into one area, right?
And the key with that for me, when I talk about from the user experience, it really boils down to getting the right people, the right data at the right time, right? Yeah. So how can you do that? How can you accomplish that? So again, if you're listening to this and you're saying, how can I use integrations to make myself, more efficient? Think of it from the user perspective and what data is valuable to them at a very specific point in time, some tasks that they're doing, and how can I get it in front of them?
Right.
Integrating with Salesforce, with Teams, or Dynamics with Teams, and getting, contact information into calendar events, or, the memos into calendar events, all these different ways that I can help, sort of inform the task by all the information that's floating around our enterprise in a timely way. That
In a
I think
timely way. Yeah.
that is the key to integration. So if you filter it through those things, I think most people will see how it can really help kind of push them forward in that sense.
Right. Great. Well, thanks everybody for joining. That concludes our session of 5 ways to save, and hopefully we see you for the next one.